Times Influence Initiative.
Every management student has studied the 5 forces model of industry attractiveness. The framework, which is used to analyze the level of competition within an industry, was developed by management guru Michael E. Porter. The 5 forces model is used by leading businesses around the globe when formulating their corporate strategy. Institute for Competitiveness and Times Network brought Michael Porter to India to share his valuable insights on strategy, shared value and progress. The event in Mumbai began with an opening note by the chairman of Institute for Competitiveness, Amit Kapoor.
This is one of the finest years for us since we have been doing this. In fact, we have been doing the PorterPrize for the last 5 years, but this time, the 6th cohort, we had one of the finest gifts that Mike could actually give to us. So Mike has traveled all the way from US or from Boston. He came in yesterday and it's absolutely a privilege to have him with us. Mike is going to share some stunning ideas from various things that he has done over his lifetime, from ideas from strategy to competitiveness to shared value to social progress. So he's going to touch upon a lot of interesting things. But without further ado, we'll just jump into the program. I have one very close friend of mine, Wilfred Albert, who is going to give the opening keynote. He's going to be talking about riding the tiger. Incidentally, Riding the Tiger is the title of our book. In fact, Wilfred and I co-authored the book called Riding the Tiger recently. It was published in December by Penguin Random House. And we are very proud that it's actually on the bestseller list. And he's going to give a small keynote on the book from where we learned over a period of time, talking to something like about 125 companies, and it was done because of the PorterPrize process itself. So Wilfred, over to you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I do have a quick presentation. So we want to talk about riding the tiger and navigating complexity and what can be learned from India. So if we look at the world today, it's extremely interesting. We have the French who nearly decided to build a wall of cheese and wine around their country and be really French. We have the Brits that are pulling up the bridges of the Thames. We have America that's worried about America first. We worry about Make in India, Make in Indonesia, Make in the Philippines. So it's a world that really has some very fundamental transformations, and these political changes are just a reflection of underlying changes. One is globalization. Some of them are linked to the challenges that we have on the front of the environment, but a lot of it is also linked to the fact that we are moving away from a manufacturing ground or founded economy to an economy that's more and more service-oriented, because at the end of the day, robots, autonomous vehicles, and software bots will take a lot of the work that is currently being done by people. Now, if we look at what it takes to succeed in such an environment, we are in a very good position. We've had this kind of volatility, uncertainty, complexity all around us for a very long time. I've been in India now for 25 years coming and going, and I can assure you that at least my experience indicates that we are very well positioned to handle this kind of complex environment. And what we've seen, looking at some of the companies that are operating in India, that are successful in India, they typically work around 6 fundamental levers. One is operational excellence. You cannot succeed in this country without taking every paisa out of the process. It just does not work. The second is innovation. Indian consumers have a very complex value equation. If you look at the automotive business, it is not just price. It's not just fuel economy. It's styling, it's brand, it's pickup. Innovation, understanding what is important for the Indian consumer and getting that into your products is key. Choices and trade-offs. Again, you cannot be everything to everybody. One of the key challenges that we see with lots of entrepreneurs is everybody wants to be a conglomerate, right? I am successful in one particular area, so let me move into the next particular area. I'll be successful over there as well. It really doesn't work for most people. Alignment. We live in a country that is de facto like the European Union. It's a conglomeration of countries, a conglomeration of culture. What you have to do is make sure that people understand what your company is all about, what is the value proposition that you give to your customers, and then ensure that they are enabled to bring that value proposition to consumers. Leadership and courage is one thing that I've seen quite a bit here in India, whether it's Bharat Forge buying a gun manufacturing facility in 10 days, whether it's Chand Sehgal building a factory in 39 days to start exports for Daimler. So that kind of capacity to take calls on what to do and what not to do is a key differentiator in India. And last but not least, agility and serendipity. As Napoleon said, right? What kind of general do you want? I want a lucky one, right? It doesn't hurt to be lucky at times, provided that you actually know that you're lucky and you leverage that opportunity. So just to wrap it up, the world is getting increasingly complex. But we have dealt with this kind of complexity for a long time. We also know what needs to be done and how to address this complexity. There are these 6 levers. You cannot just pick one and hope you're going to win. You have to do a combination of all. If you look at Maruti Suzuki, they're coming with Nexa, they're coming with new designs. It's always a combination of these 6 factors that you need to optimize and drive. But the good thing over here is it really is not rocket science. It can be done, right? You don't need a PhD in nuclear physics to sort of run this. The only thing is it's consistency and execution that are the key. Thank you very much.
Welcome back. Author, researcher, and academician Michael Porter took to the stage to talk about his forte, creating and sustaining competitive advantage through strategy.
What have we kind of learned about how to think about strategy? Well, I think what we've learned is that the instinct that most leaders have about success, and most people actually have about success, is dangerous, is potentially distracting. What I find is that when you ask a company what success looks like, the answer that I get a lot, is, well, I want to be the best company in my industry. But in business competition, and what we've come to understand is that's actually not the way to think about success. The reason is that there is no best company. So it's pretty dangerous to try to do something that's impossible. There's no one way to compete. The biggest mistake in strategy is to think that there's only one way to compete. In every industry, there are different ways to compete, depending on what customer and customer needs you're actually trying to meet. So when you ask the question, what's the best car or the best car company, you can't answer that because being the best all depends on who you're trying to serve. So the number one principle of strategy is don't think this way. Instead, what you want to think about is how can I, in my company, be unique? How can I create unique value for the set of customers I choose to serve? Strategy is fundamentally about choice. It's making a set of choices, and the most fundamental choice is who am I trying to serve? And one of the worst mistakes in strategy is to try to serve everybody. You can't meet the need of every customer. You just can't do it. It's impossible. Another tremendous mistake in strategy is to get into a competition with your competitors on the same thing. If your competitor is trying to be the lowest cost, it's pretty unusual to win if you then try to chase them and be low cost. The essence of strategy is to find a unique position in your business that delivers unique value to the customers you choose to serve. Now, again, in a country like India where growth has been relatively rapid, you can ride the rising tide and do okay. But I'm talking today about the companies that are going to be truly successful, not the ones that are just bumping along with the market. Now, you know, the word strategy gets used a lot, and I always try to help companies I work with and people I work with kind of have a clear understanding of what we mean by a strategy. Strategy is a set of choices we make, long-term choices, to distinguish ourselves from competitors. That's what it's all about. It defines how we're going to compete differently, and it also really articulates the competitive advantages that we will seek to create and use in order to win. The strategy is the unique position that allows you to get to whatever goal you set. We can't confuse the strategy and the goal. We can't mix them up. We have to separate the goal we're trying to achieve, and then the strategy is how we're going to get there. Strategy is not just one thing, one step. Strategy is not to go international. That's not a strategy. Raising R&D is not a strategy. Strategy is holistic. It's the whole set of choices that you make collectively in order to position the company for success over time in the marketplace. What we've got to remember is when we set strategy, we have to focus on the economic performance part. We can't try to please the stock market. We can't try to figure out what today investors want. That's going to confuse us. The strategy occurs at multiple levels in any company, in many companies, not every company. The core level of strategy is what we call business strategy. That's how to compete in each or in the distinct business in which you operate. So here, if you're in passenger cars, you'd have a strategy for passenger cars. That's business strategy. But in many companies, there's another level of strategy, which is what we call corporate strategy. And that has to do with the overall strategy of the diversified or multi-business company. What we understand is that industries are different in terms of the nature of competition. And we got to understand our industry. We got to understand how its competition is evolving, where it's heading, and what kind of competitive dynamics are we going to have to contend with. But one of the things I find over and over again is often the health of your industry is just as important as how good a position you have. How do we achieve superior profitability in the industry, whatever the industry attractiveness looks like? Well, that has to do with the two fundamental types of competitive advantage. One is to differentiate yourself, do something better. Customer will pay you more for it. The other kind of competitive advantage is lower cost. If we can actually do something cheaper and more efficiently, and that's not just luck. That's not just, oh, we bought a lower cost parts this week. But if we can find a way of structurally being lower cost because we've redesigned the way we do things, that's the other kind of competitive advantage. And really the broadest thinking about strategy starts with, okay, which path are we on? Are we on a path to differentiate? Are we on a path to be the lowest cost? So we've got to figure out what path we're on. And then we have to turn it into a strategy using the value chain. The value chain says, for any business, there's a whole set of things that we have to do in order to conduct that business. Logistical things, operating things, which could be manufacturing, marketing, sales, service, supply chain, technology development. You see this, and this idea called the value chain is a way of mapping what operation in this industry looks like. Strategy isn't sort of any esoteric thing. It's simply a set of choices about how we are going to operate the business. A good strategy is one where there's clarity on the choices we're really making. And there's enough things that we're doing differently that we can get a competitive advantage. The first kind of key idea here in going from kind of a value chain to strategy is the notion of operational effectiveness versus strategic position. This is an idea that I didn't have when I first published my first books in this field. So what we have to understand is in any company we have two jobs. One is we got to implement all the best practices that we can find. If we see somebody doing a better approach to customer care, we better look hard at that and make sure that we're at least at some threshold level of best practice. That's operational effectiveness. But operational effectiveness is not strategy. Operational effectiveness is doing the same things as your competitor better and better and better. It's raising the bar on the same things as all your competitors are doing. You've got to sort of operate the business well, but on top of that, you have to have a strategy. And that strategy is building on the best practices, but then including the choices that are going to define your uniqueness. So if we really want to win, we got to do both. And we've got to make sure that we're clear about what we're doing. To have a truly successful strategy, we have to define a unique value proposition. Second test of a great strategy, again, think about your own company here, a distinctive value chain. If you don't operate the business differently, your value chain isn't going to be real. Another critical part of a successful strategy is the concept of trade-offs. A trade-off is where in order to deliver one benefit, you give up on another benefit. Strategy's about choice, about choosing what you want to do. But one of the phrases that I said at some point, and I found has been very powerful, is the essence of strategy is what you choose not to do. It's the service you don't offer. It's the functions you don't provide. It's the benefit you don't offer. That's the essence of strategy. If you can be clear about that, that's a good sign that you can be clear about your overall strategy. In terms of a successful strategy, we've got to connect the dots across the value chain. We've got to make sure the service connects with the way we market, connects with our kind of product, value proposition. The pieces fit together across the value chain, and there's continuity. You can't be changing strategy all the time. When we think about strategy, one of the things that I find very helpful to think about and might be helpful for you is what kind of competition are we creating in our industry? And the wrong answer is we're creating a zero-sum competition. We're all doing the same thing, beating each other up on price. That's not the competition we want. What we want to create is really more of a positive-sum competition where we all have a different strategy. We're all trying to do something a little bit different. We're serving different customers. We're trying to meet different needs. That's the kind of competition we want. What are the key questions of corporate-level strategy? First of all, understanding what different businesses you're in. Do we have the right portfolio? Is each business attractive in and of itself? And then are we the best owner for the business? Does the business reinforce each other? Do we have synergy? Is there a logic for how the businesses fit together? And so on. Okay, these are the key questions of corporate level strategy. It's a different animal. It builds on business strategy, but it's different. And then I guess let me finish up this section by talking about, well, what's our job as leaders in strategy? And what I found is that the head of a business unit, and the CEO of the overall corporation, ultimately, you have to be the chief strategist. The reason is that nobody else has the right perspective for strategy except the ultimate leader. So you've got to use your people to get information. You've got to make it a team process, but you have to decide. Strategy can't be a popularity contest where everybody gets a vote. Because essence of strategy is about choices. And we got to make one clear set of choices. We can't have sort of, oh, well, we'll do this, and we'll do this, and we'll do this, and we'll do this. Oh, yes, marketing, I know you want to do this. We'll do a little bit of that, too. You're not going to do well. You're not going to have a strategy. You shouldn't ask the question of how much is the industry going to grow for the next 10 years and think that's the key question. The industry, where do we stand today? How would we benchmark our performance across the value chain? Who are our key competitors? How are they doing? Where do they stand? What do their value chains look like? There's a lot of key questions in a good strategy, and the only person who's going to make sure you have the right questions is you. Because you're the person that's actually in charge of pulling it together and making the choices at the end of the day. Your board of directors, we found, you need to let your board of directors see the strategy before they have to approve it. Board of directors want to participate in the process. Now, it's not their job to develop the strategy, but they're usually smart people, and it's very helpful to get their input. And then you can come back to them with what you want them to approve. And as long as they've been part of the process and felt like they got some ownership in the process, they're going to be really comfortable. But if you just show up one day and say, here's my strategy, everybody vote yes, then you're going to erode your capital with the board. So as a leader, one of your most critical jobs is to essentially create the right processes to allow your team to succeed. This is kind of the fundamental ideas that I think we all have to really understand and then turn into reality if we're going to have a great strategy.
Next week, catch Michael Porter in conversation with Sanjeev Puri, CEO and Executive Director of ITC, along with a thought-provoking panel on strategy, the idea of efficiency, trade-off, positioning, and fit.
Times Influence Initiative.